A top New York cancer doctor who fatally shot her 4-month-old daughter and herself used her husband's gun after battling severe postpartum psychosis. Dr. Krystal Cascetta, 40 years of age, killed her baby at around 7 a.m. on Saturday before turning the gun on herself. This happened in her Westchester home, New York. It's been claimed that the gun was registered to the doctor's husband, his name Timothy Tulsi, 37 years of age, who was away at the time of the tragic incident. Investigators believe that mental health conditions, including postpartum depression or more severe postpartum psychosis, were a factor in the mother's actions. Dr. Krystal Cascetta. So we see some photos of the doctor and her husband, relatively young. Dr. Krystal Cascetta, 40 years old. The husband, Timothy Tulsi, 37 years old. They seem to be living a successful, happy life. And then this happens. It's mind-boggling, really. A successful, intelligent woman, one would think, leaving a nice life. She's got money. She's a doctor. Doctors are generally well paid. She's living in New York. She's married. Looks like they've got a pet dog perhaps. And she gave birth to a beautiful daughter 4 months ago. Life couldn't have been going any better, but seemingly her mental health issues absolutely destroyed all of that. It's believed that she took her husband's gun, legally registered by all accounts, and under the throes of postpartum depression, perhaps even postpartum psychosis, she shoots and kills her own baby, 4-month-old baby girl, and then takes her own life. I read through a lot of articles, many of which are on the topic of child murder, and I'm normally extremely angry at the child murderers. Sometimes, for whatever reason, and I'm not saying I'm right, I'm just saying that I'm just expressing what goes on in my head, or my heart even. In some cases, I do feel some level of empathy for the murderer, and I do in this case. You might disagree with that. If you do, tell me in the comments if you feel that I'm wrong to feel some level of empathy. Of course, she should not have done this, obviously, but in this case, in cases like this, I do agree with the scientific experts, the psychiatrists, the psychologists. I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist or scientist myself, but it seems that they're very confident that there is this illness or disease or disorder, whatever it happens to be classified as, which they term as being postpartum depression or postpartum psychosis, which sets upon the mother a huge darkness. They're not able to think rationally, seemingly. There is no reason that this woman, this doctor, should have done this. I'm willing and I guess happy to accept what the psychologists are saying, that she was suffering postpartum psychosis, and that's really what was to blame. She was not in her right state of mind. Do I think that her being a doctor is a relevant point? Yeah, I do, because to be a doctor, I respect doctors. I don't necessarily agree with everything about them. There's been a couple of major incidences over the last couple of years, which I don't fully support most doctors in their actions. But generally speaking, doctors are intelligent people, the most intelligent people, highly intelligent people, certainly above average. They're dedicated people, they're hardworking people, and they're serving the community in a great way. I have utmost respect for doctors in general. By all accounts, I would take it that the mother, Dr. Krystal Cascetta, was an upstanding member of the community, not a scumbag, not a drug addict, not a sleazeball, not prone to violence. These are presumptions on my part, of course, but an upstanding member of society. And I've got to say, my opinion, could be wrong, could be right, is that it is this disorder, postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis, which compelled her to take these heinous acts. Does that mean she should get a complete pass? No, of course not. You wouldn't want to see anybody guilty of child murder or any kind of murder to get away without adequate punishment. But for me personally, I do feel some level of empathy for her. I don't think she was in her right state of mind. The article tells us that postpartum mental health conditions impacts an estimated 20% of new moms. That's a pretty significant amount, 20% impacted to at least some extent by postpartum mental health conditions. So my take on this is that she was a victim in some kind of sense. She was a victim of this disorder. She would not have done this in a normal state of mind. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail in regards to the tragedy. Dr. Krystal Cascetta was a hematology-oncology specialist with Mount Sinai in New York City. We're told that the doctor entered the baby's room at around 7 a.m. on Saturday in Westchester County, New York, and she shot the child, her 4-month-old baby girl. We're not told the girl's name, before turning the gun on herself. She did this at her $1 million home. Is that point relevant, that the home has a value of $1 million? million? No, I don't think so. I mean, maybe to some extent it gives us an indication that she was financially secure, at least to some degree, but it just goes to show that, that level of financial security doesn't protect someone against at least this particular mental disorder. Dr. Cascetta's husband was away at the time. He was not involved in the shooting, but the doctor's parents were inside the house at the time. Oh, that's terrible. Full condolences, of course, to all of the family and friends involved, to the father, to the doctor's husband, but also to the doctor's parents. There they are, relaxing at home with their daughter and their granddaughter, and unbeknownst to them, their daughter goes into the granddaughter's bedroom and commits a murder-suicide. That must have been absolutely terrible. I presume the doctor's parents entered the baby's room and discovered the bodies. We're told that on social media there's been a lot of speculation blaming the doctor's husband, stating that the doctor's husband was somewhat involved in the shootings, but police investigators have announced that that is 100% not the case. The doctor's husband was not at the home, not in the area at the time of the shootings, had no involvement whatsoever, beyond the belief that the gun used was registered to him. So his life has been ripped apart, his baby girl shot and killed by his own wife, the mother of the child. She subsequently takes her own life. That's happened in their family home with the doctor's parents there. Full condolences to the husband, to the father, and to the grandparents. I guess the only lesson to be learned from here is to take postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis very seriously. If you happen to know a recent mom, someone that's given birth recently, keep an eye on them. Look out for warning signs of some kind of depression, some kind of odd behavior. I don't know what the mechanisms would be in order to address any concerns. Can you compel people to be checked out by a doctor? Is a doctor going to be able to identify postpartum depression? I guess so. But there we go. I'm going to wrap things up at this point in regards to this article and move on to the next.